historically, we were in a period where inflation was really low. Inflation is a big factor. We've seen from that 2020 to 2024, we've seen inflation spike in ways that very transparently most retirees didn't expect.
Yeah. When you retire, every day is Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if every day is Saturday, you're going to spend more money.
They want to get to $1 million or $2 million or $3 million. And for whatever reason, that's the number. They haven't actually determined what their withdrawal strategy is going to be in retirement, and they don't know whether that's enough.
High spending at the beginning, low spending in the middle, and then high spending at the end. The 4% rule does not affect your situation.
So in today's video, we're going to be talking about why so many retirees spend up to 30% more than they expected to in retirement. These are specifically early retirees. Okay, so through helping hundreds of retirees through this phase, we wanted to talk about some of the key reasons why this happens and what we can do to avoid them.
I mean, we meet with folks all the time, and people are somewhat disillusioned. When can they retire? They finally retire, but then things happen, and they're like, wait, this isn't going the way that I thought it would go. And so we want to talk about that today.
Yeah.
And so some interesting percentages is that a lot of people, not a lot, not a majority, but a good portion of people are spending more in retirement than they thought they would. Mm-hmm. So basically in 2020, 17% said that they were spending more, which that was COVID. Okay. Mm-hmm. People were stuck at home, not doing much. In 2022, it was 27%. And then 2024, which is the last number that we have, 31%. That's almost a third of people are now spending more than they thought they would in retirement, and I think it scares some people.
So there's a spending in retirement survey that's done really every year, and they survey retirees across a spectrum, early 60s to mid 70s, and they poll them and see, understanding some of their spending habits. And so these are some of the stats that Todd's sharing. What we begin to see, the first big thing I think we begin to see here is that inflation plays a big role. Inflation is a big factor. We've seen from that 2020 to 2024, we've seen inflation spike in ways that very transparently most retirees didn't expect.
Yeah.
When I would create scenarios for folks around 2020 and before that, we put in the inputs in the software, and I would have to sometimes argue with people about how much we should assume inflation is going to be.
What number did you put in?
So I would always use at the time, it started with like the 102, 104 year average. Now it's like 110 year average. And so every year it goes up, which was much higher than the 10-year average.
Sure.
And so the reason for that is, historically we were in a period where inflation was really low. Now it's coming back into a more historically normal area. We've got to account for that. So I think that unexpected spike was a big thing for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
What are some of the other factors that have kind of caused this?
Well, I think people, one thing I was told is when you retire, what is the one day of the week, if you're working 5 days a week, what is the one day of the week that you probably spend the most money? Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday.
Chores, activities, going out to eat, driving to visit people, doing it. You're free that day. Okay. And so you go do stuff and you spend more money that day. Well, when you retire, every day is Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if every day is Saturday, you're going to spend more money. Mm-hmm. And, one thing that's important to me is I've worked very hard for a long time and I've put off a lot of things. And I think people have bucket list items that they've always wanted to do. Now they're retired. It's like, hey, let's go do it. Well, bucket list items cost money.
Mm-hmm. This is a significant opportunity here. One of the other parts from the study that I thought was really interesting was the number of folks who retired early, but not because they wanted to.
Yeah, 58%. 58% of people retire earlier than they planned. One of the big reasons was health problems.
Yeah.
That kind of stinks.
This is a challenge.
Yeah. And what we're seeing now is my son just went through a company restructure, shall we say. He didn't get fired, but someone who came to work 2 weeks before him just got laid off. And so with tariffs and just the economy and different things, it expanded for a long time. Now it's cutting down, and there's a lot of people being laid off earlier than they planned on. And so to compound upon that is 50% of people have said that they did not save as much as they wanted to.
This one is huge.
That
to
is
me.
huge.
This one is huge. And so, again, the theme here is spending in the early years of retirement for early retirees is a lot higher than they expect, typically. Sometimes up to 30% higher than they expect. Now, if you get into retirement and you realize, oh no, this is more expensive because of inflation, because of things like health challenges, you realize, oh, I didn't save enough. This is a huge concern, and where we find typically where this happens is folks either have a certain number that they're attached to that they want to save. They want to get to $1 million or $2 million or $3 million. And for whatever reason, that's the number. They haven't actually determined what their withdrawal strategy is going to be in retirement, and they don't know whether that's enough.
We had that meeting yesterday. We were in a meeting, and this guy just off the top of his head, when Ian said, what's the number that you want to be at to retire? He said, 2.5 million. And I was glad you didn't because we were pushing time, but I knew you wanted to say, where did that number come from? Why 2.5 million?
Yeah.
And I'm sure his answer would be, it just sounds good.
Yeah. It's about this much a year, right? And so, these are the kind of things that what we're finding folks are realizing is they don't have a system to really figure out how they're going to create income in retirement. And they don't have a system to deal with the unexpected. I think really the headline for this one is what causes these expenses to be higher than they think. They're unexpected things. Inflation, health challenges, having to retire earlier than you want, which leads a lot of folks to have not saved as much as they want.
Yeah.
So now what do we do?
Yeah.
That's the question. How do we handle this?
It's all handled because there are some calculators out there that fit everyone's situation and tells you exactly how to do this, right?
Oh boy. Okay. So, what we've created is what we call our RIP framework. Okay. This is I know Todd hates this, but everyone remembers this, right? The RIP framework, the required income percentage framework. Okay.
Right.
So you've probably heard of the 4% rule. We want to customize that to you. That's what we do, right? Sure. And a lot of the folks that that we see that run into these challenges is they think that something like the 4% rule or the 4.7% rule, depending on when you ask Mr. Bengen, it changes. That's not customized to the actual person, right? And so, our friend that we were discussing, okay, 2.5 million at 4% might be a certain number, but what if there's an unexpected expense? Can he take more? How do we handle those changes in those systems? And so, if you want to understand what your RIP percentage is, your required income percentage in retirement, click the link below. We've created a quiz that's going to help us to give you an idea of where you're at and whether or not some adjustments need to be made. So click the link below. Happy to send a quick video back to you and help to analyze that for you.
Yeah. So now knowing that there are some drivers out there that can cause you to spend more, to retire not when you actually thought that you could, what sort of things can we do for people to help take their facts and say, how can I get through retirement? How can I make sure this isn't such a traumatic time for me?
Well, what we need to do, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a plan.
Yeah.
We need to stress test the current plan. So we need to understand, okay, if you continue at the current spending rate that you're at, are you going to run out of money? Are taxes going to kill you? What is the impact of healthcare, long-term care? Where are the big icebergs in the water here? And we need to create a plan to deal with those icebergs, not if they come, but when they come. The only thing we know for sure about retirement is there's going to be challenges. And so we need to create a plan to address them when they come.
Well, and I want to bring in this concept. We've discussed this before, and the resource that we're referring to put it in a very nice way. And they call it the retirement spending smile. And we've referred to this back and forth, but this really does put a picture in your mind. People think when you retire, and that 4% rule assumes you're going to spend the same amount of money every month all through retirement.
Adjusting for inflation, but still, it's basically a straight line.
Yeah, and that's not what happens.
It's not real life.
So it's a smile. So if you picture a time and spending calculation, when you first retire, people have been chained to a desk for 30 years and they want to now go do stuff. They they want to go to Italy. They want to spend time with the kids in Disney World. Well, that stuff costs money. And so initially, early in your retirement, you still have health, hopefully, and you now have free time. You're going to spend money at a very high rate. Well, as you do those things, as I've been there, done that, okay, and your health starts to progress a little bit, spending comes down, okay, and you start spending less, and now you're like, well, I don't feel good. I don't want to spend the night away from home. We're just going to do things here, so you don't spend much money. And then as your health continues to progress, you need help. Well, that help costs money, and then you eventually need more and more help, and so it starts going up. And so you start out high, you come down, and then spending goes up again. So it's a smile. It's an inverted, what do you call that?
Bell curve.
Bell curve, yeah. High spending at the beginning, low spending in the middle, and then high spending at the end. The 4% rule does not affect your situation. It's a general rule that probably does not affect your goals.
It's great napkin math to figure out whether you're, in the right start, but you don't want to bet your entire retirement on back of the napkin math.
So what are some of the things we can do to help if we know this smile curve is coming at us? How can we address that?
So there's a handful of things that we need to do. One, we need to make sure that we have the right asset allocation. What do you own? What accounts do you own that in? Is that going to be able to cover your expenses in the early years, but also be able to take care of unexpected things later on? The next thing we need to address is taxes. Are taxes going to be a big contributor over time? And is that going to stress your plan too much?
If you start cashing in IRAs and 401ks for the trip to Italy, you're going to pay a lot of taxes on that. So maybe we start a little bit early knowing we're going to spend a lot of money for the first 5 to 7 years. Let's free up some things so that you have the money without paying taxes. Right?
We need to create a system to evaluate when we need money, where are we going to take it from? And in order to minimize the risk with that, we need to take emotion out of that. That's why we built the system that we've built. And so if you feel like you're still unprepared for retirement, click the link below, fill out the questionnaire. We're going to send you back a quick little video that's going to show you where you're at and what are some opportunities that you could potentially take advantage of.
So as an attorney and financial advisor, I spend a lot of my time in that final upswing of expenses.
The other side of the smile.
Yeah. And so what sort of things can people do if you know that's going to occur?
Yeah.
And it's rare that it doesn't. I mean, the percentages are 75% of everyone's going to spend some time in a nursing home or in some type of care.
Yeah.
And so that final upswing's coming. We can plan for that very effectively.
Yes, and we need to plan for that. So there are legal and financial strategies that we can use to handle the risk of long-term care, okay? And so when we think about long-term care, you might say, well, I don't want to go into the nursing home. Well, unfortunately, the nursing home is full of people who didn't want to go into the nursing home.
Absolutely.
So we can't take the ostrich in the sand approach, because at some point we got to come up for air anyway, right? So, there are things that are just outside of our control. And so what we need to understand is the risk of long-term care and health challenges in retirement. These are unknown unknowns. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to cost. And we have an undefined risk. This is the challenge. It might not be a big issue for you, or it might destroy everything that you've built. And if you're not comfortable with the potential to lose everything that you've built to something unpredictable like long-term care, we need to create a plan to address it. And we use legal and financial strategies to do that. And what we do is we cap the risk. There are ways that we can cap the total percentage of your portfolio that could be subject to those issues.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of strategies and process to that, but we need to customize something for you. And so if you have an attorney, or if you've worked with a financial advisor for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years and they've not addressed long-term care, this is something that you need to bring in a specialist to deal with this about.
I think if they have not addressed this entire issue, they're like, okay, you've saved up this much money, you're going into retirement, good luck. Okay, yeah, the money's here, good luck. Well, no, you need to know this is going to start out high, go down, and then come back up. And if your advisor has not talked to you, if they have not brought this up and planned this for you, it's time that you get a second opinion, and we would love to be the person to people to sit down with you. Let our team sit down with you and go through this, and we can discuss all of this very well. And it's just a really fun meeting and we did 4 meetings yesterday together. And there were things that I missed. And Ian's like, well, what about this? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great point. And so between legal and financial products being brought together in one team with 2 people who understand how each other thinks, it's just a beautiful process.
Well, I think what's really important is, the only thing we know for sure is that the unexpected is going to happen. It could be inflation. It could be, the timing of your retirement. It could be unexpected health challenges. It could be unexpected long-term care issues. It could be things outside of your control. We know that's going to happen, but we don't know when and how that's going to happen. And so what we want to do is we want to create a system and implement a system for you to be able to navigate those challenges regardless of what happens when. And so now that you really understand what some of the drivers are, some of the challenges related to early retirees spending more than they expect in retirement, now we've got to talk about, okay, what do we do? You're more prepared to be able to deal with those things. But by implementing the Retirement Smile framework, understanding how that works and what are the drivers of that, from properly structuring your income to creating appropriate spending guardrails, you can really address the critical planning gap that most traditional planning approaches, unfortunately, just miss. But if you still feel uncertain about your spending habits during retirement, click the first link in the description, fill out a complimentary questionnaire that we put together. Afterwards, we'll send you a video breaking down exactly the steps you need to take to secure a safe retirement.
Yeah. And one other request, if you like this content, please subscribe. Please share with other people. But when you subscribe, you'll be given notice that we've put up another video, and it really helps us be able to keep doing this. And we would love to see you every time we do this. So thank y'all very much, and we will see you next time. Okay? Thanks.